Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Tavis Leaf Glover, and today we have another Canon of Design quick tips. Today we're covering the cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki in the movie The Revenant. So let's get into it and learn a couple new tricks here. First we have this cool sequence, so I'll cover a couple of cool sequences where we start out with nice composition and then the camera pans over to another nice composition. So in this first composition we have Leo on the left here. All these guys, they're all separated. So then the camera pans over to the right and we have this nice diagonal, this sinister diagonal going this way. People in the river, separated shapes, and then all these horses up here on the ridge are running this way on another diagonal. So here's a horse, a couple horses here, and then one here, and then separated shapes here. So that's a nice little cool sequence that we can learn from, where it starts out with a nice composition, then ends with a nice composition. Okay, and then we'll learn about other techniques within these scenes too. In this next sequence, he starts out really close to the actor. It's creating aerial perspective, which with the water splashes, the fog in the distance, it's creating that depth that looks very nice in cinematography. So then he pans out, gets another sequence here. We see kind of the story developing, and he's going over this waterfall here. More aerial perspective, nice figure-ground relationships. This dark figure on a light background, there's separation there. And then he finishes with this very cool shot with the actor going over the river, and then we've got these nice Baroque diagonals leading us down the waterfall in this Baroque diagonal here. And we'll cover this grid in a little bit. So next up we have lens flares. Lens flares add a sense of depth and atmosphere, just like aerial perspective. We've got the fog, but we've also got this lens flare, and it's creating that depth within the image. It also creates a sense of warmth. So I know they're probably freezing, but it is adding that sense of warmth from the sun. The most important thing it's adding is that aerial perspective. Reduces the contrast and adds that sense of depth. Okay, so here's a few more shots. If you check my website and you go to my cinematography, I've got a couple videos on there, and one video is kind of for 18 and older, but I use a lot of lens flares in that, and I'll probably put up a couple clips from that. Yeah, this sequence is really nice, and they use a lot of lens flares to add that sense of depth. Very cool technique that a lot of movies use. So now we'll cover the warm and cool tones that he uses. Several shots use that deep blue with the light orange colors, and those are complementary colors. They look really cool on screen, so here's a couple. So we've got light orange with this dark orange, a light blue, and then we've got blue tones on his face reflecting. This one, got that dark blue with the light orange. Very nice shot. And then if we look at this sequence, I'm sure we've got lots of separated shapes here, and then aspect of view also, so we can identify these shapes a little easier, especially since they're silhouettes. We got the nice warm colors with the cool colors here. Nice arabesque coming down here, the river. Alright, let's look at something new that we haven't really covered, is these filming. When you're filming or even taking photos and you don't have a chance to create interesting compositions or capture diagonals or fill the frame or the grid as much as you want, he's using this wide angle lens, and he's capturing these video game perspectives. So unique perspectives where the character is huge in the frame and the other characters are quite small. So we've got very cool perspectives he's using. We've got the lens flare, this video game perspective, capturing more diagonals and adding more depth in that one. This is a cool shot, getting that nice figure ground relationship here, separated shapes, aerial perspective, and more diagonals. Okay, this one, another cool perspective, really up close, intensifying that pain he's feeling here. Aerial perspective in the background. Alright, so let's go to another one and we'll check out all these diagonals that he's capturing, and I'll turn the grid on for these. This is the root 6 with 4 smaller root 6s inside, and then the phi caliper measurements right here. Alright, and then we've got the rebated square, 45-degree angles there. This is another thing that he's using, is dynamic symmetry. We got this guy locking in here on the sinister, Also got that aerial perspective in the background. Here's another diagonal right here. This part's paralleling the 45-degree angle of the square. We've also got that lens flare, and we'll cover another technique called counterparts, where this is one part of the subject on one side of the frame and then this is the other. This one, we've got the diagonal of this gun here. It's the broke diagonal, you can see there. Lots of aerial perspective, and then we've also got this diagonal of this branch here. So he's looking for scenes where he can capture these diagonals, create this depth, and then create all this drama with the water splashing towards the camera. Next we have this one, diagonals of the mountain coming down, and then this guy happens to land right on the 45-degree angle and the horizontal right here. This could also be considered a pointing device because the mountain is pointing us right to this guy. See how that works? He's not using rule of thirds, he's using these diagonals to point us in this direction here. So we'll cover the rule of thirds in another clip towards the end. Another diagonal here, he's getting low. The diagonal of his face, which is another cool perspective also, but then the trees, he's tilting the camera, so he's getting this diagonal of the face, but he's also tilting the camera and it's creating these diagonals in the trees too. This one, another diagonal of the face. This one, diagonal of the gun, but also if you look, there's a line of continuity going from the chin to the thumb up to the back of the horse, and it's all on that broke diagonal. Also, the hand right here is locking into that sinister reciprocal diagonal, which is paralleling this right here. You can see the nice aerial perspective in the background, the warm and cool colors, a lot of stuff going on right there. This is probably CGI too, this sparks. Probably set up orange light to go off here with a puff of smoke to capture this light on his face, and then the CGI stuff created the sparks. That's my guess. And we've got more diagonals. This one right here, which is also that sinister reciprocal we were talking about. Nice aerial perspective. And then this one's pretty obvious. Diagonal of the mountain there, aerial perspective. We'll go on to the counterpart here. These are really cool, the way he does this, because if you're using the rule of thirds and you don't know much about balance, you're using the rule of thirds and you putting something on this side, but then if nothing's on this side, then it creates this imbalance from left to right, because we always have to think of the center of the frame as a fulcrum, like a teeter-totter. So if you have too much interest on one side, it's going to make the other side feel unbalanced. So this is a very cool sequence because he's got this guy on the left side. Also, we've got this diagonal here, right? And then in the background, we've got that nice aerial perspective, but also someone's in this direction here, this guy. So that creates a nice left to right balance, okay? Very cool scene. Another cool scene is the actors on the left here. We've got the diagonal. You can see how he's just combining multiple techniques within most of these scenes. We've got aerial perspective, but also if you're watching the movie, this whole sequence in the background, it creates an avalanche right here. So that's the second part of the frame that creates that balance from left to right. This guy and then the avalanche. Okay? Multiple techniques in one frame equals a very cool scene. This one we've got obviously the bears on the left of the center line, and then Leo's on the right. We also got that unique perspective, you know, the video game perspective I was talking about. We've got the diagonal of that, diagonal of the gun. We've got aerial perspective in the background here. Very cool scene. Alright, now we'll go to separated shapes, but we'll also see combinations of the techniques. When you're using minimal lighting and figures are silhouettes, you can use aspect of view and separated shapes to clearly define them. So we can see this horse is an aspect of view of the horse. So there's no detail in the body, but we can tell it's a horse, right? That's the power of this technique. Also, we can tell this is a guy walking forward, and he's clearly separated from the horse. They're not overlapping. So we've got separated shapes, aspect of view, and we've also got this aerial perspective, all this fogginess in the background here. These guys are separated here, and this guy is overlapping with the tree. More separated shapes here. Got this donkey person laying here, separated with this guy in the background, this guy laying, this guy standing, and this guy sitting. So you can see, if you're planning your shot, you want everything to be visually clear. Here, there's another guy here, I think. You want visual clarity. That's the main purpose of any art. You want visual clarity. You don't want a big mess that's confusing for people to see. And then he's creating all this repetition with the trees, with aerial perspective in the background. So a very cool shot there. Sometimes you can add lines if you're creating art. Otherwise, if you're shooting photos or movies, just capturing diagonals within the scene is a great idea. In painting or drawing, you can actually configure the grids. You can add lines. So like every intersection point creates an eye, and you can join lines from eye to eye and see if you can parallel or lock in. So from here, that eye to this eye, let's see, this one to this one. Let's see if it locks in here. See that? So that's a way to add lines in your composition. Or if you're actually shooting film or photos or whatever, you can probably eyeball it if you have your grid on the screen. Little quick tip there. More separated shapes in this one. Cool. Awesome shots all throughout this movie, actually. So we've got this guy, everything's separated. One of the best techniques a lot of cinematographers use is separated shapes. We'll see that a lot as we analyze these movies. Or if you watch movies on your own, you'll see how they stage the subjects and the action. They want the visual clarity. Okay, now let's go to this one. This is the last one we'll cover. And we've got a center composition. So this relates back to ROT, rule of thirds. So rule of thirds was said to be created to get the subject out of the center. But I think there's nothing wrong with the center because we have that fulcrum, right? And we want the image to be balanced from left to right. So if we put the subject on one side and nothing else on the other, we've got a lot of negative space. So in this shot, the original shot from the cinematographer, we've got aerial perspective, which is obvious. We've got the center composition. We've got nice figure-ground relationship. There's nothing in the background interfering with that shape. We've got an aspect of view. We can tell he's standing there. Limbs are spread. Okay, and it's a great shot. Nothing wrong with it. Perfectly balanced from left to right because it's in the center. Okay, but now when we add the ROT, when we add rule of thirds, if we switch it up, let me show you. I found the rule of thirds for you. So this is a typical flaw with the rule of thirds. Is a lot of beginner photographers that don't know any better and they're just starting out, just learning composition. They get taught this simple rule and they think since it's a rule I have to abide by it. So I line up the third and we've got a nice shot, but look at this empty space here. All this negative space that's just creating this left to right imbalance. Okay, we're left heavy over here. There's nothing on the right side. There's no interest on the right side here. Maybe if there's a spark of orange or a lot of horses here lined up on the shore, that would be a cool shot. But for right now, we have to use counterparts to create that balance. So right now, if we use the rule of thirds, there's no balance here. We've still got a decent shot because of the other techniques, but don't mistake that for the placement of the subject. The cool techniques we're seeing is aerial perspective, aspect of view, nice figure-ground relationship. So those are to contribute to the nice composition we're seeing, not the placement of the subject, the rule of thirds placement. Okay, so that's a great misconception also. Placement of the subject determines a great composition, which is absolutely false. You have to combine many different techniques to get a nice shot. Okay, so go back to this. We've got the original shot there, and we've got nice balance. Okay, imbalance, nice balance. Hopefully you can see the difference or feel the difference, but that's the shot. Okay, so that's it for this one. I will talk to you guys later, and if you want me to cover, this one was recommended in the comments, so if you want me to cover cinematographer, photographer, painter, anything related to art, I'll take a look at it, but leave a comment in the section below and let me know what their name is. You can even maybe leave a link if it's a specific photo or painting, Sometimes the links get blocked in the comments, but I'll see them in the back end of the studio. So I appreciate all the support, and I really thank you guys for taking the time to like, subscribe, and support the channel. And I hope you're all staying safe during this thing. But take care, guys.